Hello and welcome back to the next video where I want to do something a little different today and play a bit of the Liberty Kids computer game. I'm a professional journalist now and I played this game growing up, so now I'm curious to see how well it stacks up compared to how the industry runs now.
So, Sarah and James, welcome to the print shop, home of the Pennsylvania Gazette.
The voice of liberty throughout the colonies. And to think that Ben Franklin said I could be an apprentice reporter. I'll make sure that our readers know about the grievous acts Britain is responsible for.
In that case, I think it would be appropriate if someone with composure is working with you. Remember, we are all British citizens.
All right, you two. One thing we can all agree on is our goal, to make sure that the truth is known. Remember, as Ben says, a lie stands on one leg, the truth on two.
I quite agree. The issues surrounding this conflict are very complex. We need to make sure we are seeing all sides.
All sides? You mean even those who think what Parliament is doing is fair? Forget it!
But I believe that people should have liberty to follow their own consciences. Let's face it, James. We need Ben's wisdom to help us learn how to be excellent and unbiased reporters.
A good journalist prints the facts and lets people make up their own minds. While Ben is helping the American cause in London, we have the responsibility of making the Gazette the best and most read newspaper in the colonies.
I feel like that's actually a pretty good conversation and kind of explanation about journalism. And automatically, I'm already kind of thinking that this franchise as a whole probably influenced my general thoughts on bias in journalism, because I feel like that's a pretty good explanation, and they don't shy away in this from showing each character's individual bias. So like she is British, and the show itself starts out with her immigrating to the colonies. Like, she is fresh out off the boat. She moved to the colonies to work for Benjamin Franklin. And so she is coming up from it from a very British standpoint, whereas he has been raised in the colonies and is very pro-independence. And so the franchise doesn't shy away from showing that. But at the same time, they're still talking all of this journalistic stuff about, well, we have to talk about both sides, and we are not the voice, we are not the people who are making the decision, we are giving people factual information so that they can come to their own conclusions. It's a kind of refreshing conversation to see happen, just like blatantly like that. Okay, so first assignment, we're going to the Boston Tea Party.
We need to find out all the details. Sarah, James, it's up to you. You need to determine the who, what, when, and where behind the tea that was destroyed. And I want thorough reporting here. Be sure to get at least 2 quotes about why people think it happened. And if at all possible, try to make one of them Samuel Adams. My instinct tells me he was involved somehow.
Samuel Adams? That would be a scoop!
The questions you need to ask are in your notebook. Remember, excellence in reporting means a better story, which will equal more newspapers sold. Let the voice of liberty ring free and clear. Good luck, and Godspeed.
Oh man, I wish that was true, Moses.
Boston.
Strong
Massachusetts
reporting
Bay
means
Colony.
selling papers.
Finally. First, a long ride on horseback. Then, a 2-week voyage up the coast.
I don't think you have any cause to complain. If you want to be a reporter, you have to go where there's something to report.
Okay. Let's see if someone around here knows what happened to all that tea.
Which, that's true to some degree, but at this point, there's so much happening everywhere. Not every community has a paper, and there's definitely news deserts where there's nothing. You can get a job in journalism pretty much anywhere you want to be. It might take hard work, there might be a couple pit stops along the way, but it can be done.
I'm not too sure about this. I've never been in a tavern before in my life.
As a journalist, we've got to go where the stories are. I've heard rumors that Samuel Adams met with some of his fellow patriots in this place.
So that is actually true sometimes where you go wherever the story is. My advisor in college told me he was a former sports reporter. He used to go down the street to the bar after the game because that's where the coaches would be. So like that's where he basically had to go to get to get comments for his story on how the game went. I have gone to people's places of work for interviews. I've gone to their houses. We've met in cafes, they've come to the office. It all depends. So this is actually an interesting point. They use him as a source a lot, and that's something that's actually very strongly discouraged in journalism. Specific, like there are instances where you're gonna have the same person in a lot of stories. Like if you're covering city government, you're gonna have a lot of quotes from the mayor. That's just part of their position. But in student journalism, you're taught you don't talk to your friends. You want to talk to people you don't know. You want to talk to a diverse number of people. You don't want the same random person opinion in every story, because at that point it's not a random person.
What you two want? State your business.
We're reporters, doing a story on the Boston Tea Party.
And loyal British subjects, I might add. At least one of us is. We thought we might find out a few details on the ship, if we may have your permission to look around.
So they've now both done this where they very obviously introduce themselves with their bias. When I was covering education, I maybe had instances where I was talking to a homeschool mom for like a story, and I would mention that I was homeschooled until 7th grade, because that does build a little bit of a relationship.
People might be too busy to talk to us right away.
But you don't want to start out with that. That is something that can potentially come up later in a relationship with that source. And something like this, you definitely wouldn't, because at that, like, they are basically stating a political opinion and saying, oh, we're loyal British citizens or whatever. And that's just frowned upon. That's considered highly unethical in journalism at this point, to be particularly blatant about your political leanings.
Why do you think the tea was destroyed?
Some people have lost all patience with Parliament, since they seem bent on taking away our God-given liberty by taxing us without our consent.
Even though I would take note of every quote, you're going to want to take note of all of the why answers, because that's the main point. Your who, what, when, where is going to take up a paragraph. Your why is going to make up the story.
Where was the tea destroyed?
I read a report describing the whole thing. The tea crates were dumped into Boston Harbor alongside Griffin's Wharf.
So I would go ahead and save that, but it wouldn't be a usable quote. Most likely because he's not giving firsthand experience. He's saying, well, I read.
Why do you think the tea was destroyed?
Why? I know exactly why.
Okay, continue.
These colonists have lost all respect for the mother country. It's we soldiers who have to defend them, and they're not willing to pay their taxes. It's sheer selfishness, if you ask me.
And so this is another good quote. Again, you're going to want to save the why from everybody. But this is particularly good because it's an opposing view to the colonists, which you might not find many options for. One critique that I would have so far is that it's giving me the same questions for every person, which I get that that's kind of a simplified way to do it. But, like, why would I be asking this random seamstress what happened when I have no indication that she would know? It feels weird. There's maybe a better way to phrase that question. to be more about, like, well, what were you doing when you found out that it happened, or how did you find out that it happened? But just what happened, well, she wasn't there, so why do we care?
Why do you think the tea was destroyed?
To protest the tea tax. The taxes aren't really that high, you know. I suppose they think it's unfair to be taxed without having a voice in Parliament. I just hope no more violence comes to Boston. The tea was destroyed to make a stand for liberty from unjust laws, like taxes without a voice in government. But since my husband died, I've had myself and the babies to care for. Liberty is all well and good, but if all this trouble affects my business and I lose the store, what will I do?
People care about, okay, but how is this going to impact me? And so it's interesting to have a quote of somebody saying that.
Let's not forget that we should make...
It helps keep it from seeming like everybody has the same opinion or everybody's concerned about this thing, when they're not. All she wants is for there to not be more violence. There have been rumors that he's involved. You should ask him that point blank.
It was the Sons of Liberty, a group of men strongly opposed to British rule. We, I mean they, were disguised as Mohawk Indians.
And see, his little slip there clearly says that we are talking to the right person, because using we means that he's involved.
What actually happened to the tea?
It didn't end up in any loyalist cup, that's for sure.
And see, that's just... I want to say that's a fun quote. The topic's not really fun, but it is an interesting quote.
The crates of tea were broken open, and all the tea was thrown overboard and given a good soaking in the harbor.
And see, that gives a good amount of detail as well. So he is going to end up being the main source, most likely, of when they go to structure the story. Because he has the first-hand account to give the opinions, or to give the facts of what happened, and then everybody else has the auxiliary reactionary responses. And see, this is going to be a good one. So when you're going to write, you might put that, you know, a source said it was or Adam specifically said it was done at a specific time, or a highly significant time. And then this quote would follow to give context to that. This ended up being longer than I expected it to be, so I'm going to cut it here and put the story together in another episode. So keep an eye out for that. In the meantime, thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, all those things you all already know about, and I will see you next time.